What is up, guys, and welcome back for another part of What If Ash Woke Up on Time. And today we're going to be tackling the first part of Ash's journey through the Hoenn region. This first part will cover the first 8 gyms, and then the second part will cover the League and the Battle Frontier. So stay tuned for that. But before we begin, I just want to be a little bit transparent in saying that the Hoenn region and the Alola region are the 2 regions I know the least about. I never finished any of the games from either region, so for at least the Hoenn part of this What If, most of my knowledge comes from the anime. Regardless of all that, we can finally get into What If Ash Woke Up on Time. After one delightful boat ride, Ash arrives in the Hoenn region. After docking, Ash makes his way to Professor Birch's lab with really no problem. He's there for when May picks up her first Pokemon, and like in the original, it ends up being Torchic. He tells May that he also got a fire type for his first Pokemon. Ash lets Charizard out of her Pokeball and she becomes friends with May's Torchic quite fast. Despite the fact that May's bike isn't burnt to a crisp like in canon, she asks Ash if he can come along with her. Mainly due to the fact that if they run into any Pokemon, he could do the battling instead of her. So with that, the 2 trainers head off to Odile Town to register for the League. On Route 01, which is just basically outside of Littleroot Town, Ash encounters a small hyperactive Poochyena that he manages to feed a bit of food to. However, Ash decides not to catch it and moves on. However, Poochyena decides to follow them from afar. When they encounter Team Magma for the first time, Poochyena tries to stop them but gets badly injured by one of the Houndoom. But as soon as Team Magma leaves, they're able to get the Pokemon Center up and running again, and Nurse Joy takes care of the Poochyena. It's not until Poochyena is fully healed up that Ash decides to add it to his team, making it his first catch of the region, and after that they head off to Petalburg City without much trouble. And of course, this being Ash, he goes directly to the gym where Ash meets Max for the first time, who actually acts like a bigger fan of Ash than in the original, since he made it further in the Johto League and the Kanto League than in, the original timeline. After meeting May's whole family, he and Norman have an unofficial gym battle. Ash's Charizard battles Norman's Vigoroth, and they have a great battle with Charizard ultimately taking the win. After that battle, Max decides to join them on their journey, and shortly after, Brock rejoins the team as well. It's revealed that he has brought along Togepi, Charmander, and Wynaut, as he decided to leave the others with his family. After Brock joins the team, they stop a Pokemon poacher and find a Cacnea that Brock feeds a bit of food to. Because of this, Cacnea gets attached to him, and Brock catches the Cacnea that was supposed to go to James. Shortly after, Ash adds a 3rd Pokemon to his roster when he catches this Treecko, as that episode doesn't really change. In this timeline, Treecko doesn't notice the wild Seviper in time, so Torchic has to fight the Seviper. Even when the others notice, Ash's Charizard stops them from helping. This baffles everybody as Charizard isn't letting them help Torchic. As Torchic is basically getting beaten up, Charizard begins to yell out something to Torchic, and it takes a bit, but Torchic takes whatever Charizard said to heart and begins to fight back. However, Seviper is still too strong for it, and Charizard steps in using Flamethrower to scare off Seviper. Because Torchic got pretty beaten up, they have to rush it to the nearest Pokemon Center. And after being fully healed up, Torchic seems to want to battle Charizard. And of course, Ash and Charizard are more than happy to accept this challenge. May is still a little bit afraid of getting into a Pokemon battle, but seeing Torchic's determination, she challenges Ash to a battle. They do have a Pokemon battle, however Charizard is clearly holding back the entire time. The battle gets interrupted when Seviper jumps in the middle looking for revenge against Charizard. She's uninterested in fighting Seviper, but you know who isn't? Torchic. May is still a little surprised that Torchic wants to battle, but she hypes herself up and they battle Seviper. This is a very tough battle for Torchic, but ultimately she's able to take out the snake with a quick attack and Ember combo. When they knock out Seviper, both Charizard and May praise Torchic for battling so hard, and Ash asks May if she doesn't want the Seviper, can he catch it? May yells at Ash, telling him that Torchic battles so hard to defeat it, so she should at least give it a try. And when she throws the Pokeball at it, she secretly hopes that Seviper breaks free. Fortunately, or unfortunately for her, Seviper does not break free, and she catches it, making it her first Pokemon capture. After that, Brock adds a Lotad to his team, and we move on to when they arrive at Rustboro Hall. May takes an interest in Pokemon contest, and Ash finds out that the first gym is a bunch of rock types. So Ash decides to focus on teaching Trico Bullet Seed. After they leave, they run into the Forest Twins, where Ash has a double battle with Trico and Poochyena. It's thanks to this double battle that Trico actually manages to master Bullet Seed. Meanwhile, May catches herself a Wurmple that eats all of her food. After spending a day at school, Ash finally gets the chance to battle Roxanne's gym. After May announces that she'd rather be a coordinator than taking on the gym challenge, Roxanne and Ash have their gym battle. Their first Pokemon are Geodude and Trico, and this fight is a lot shorter as Trico knows Bullet Seed here. So once Geodude is finished off, Roxanne's next Pokemon is Nosepass, who quickly takes out Trico with a Zap Cannon. Because of this, Ash sends in his ace Pokemon, Charizard, and while Rock Tomb does do quite a bit of damage, she pushes through all of that and finishes off Nosepass with a couple of Metal Claws. Charizard has earned Ash the first badge of the region for like the third time. After this, Max befriends Mr. Stone, they learn about Team Aqua and Magma, and they find out that the next gym is in Dewford Island. After fighting off a Team Aqua member, they get a boat ride to Dewford Island. When arriving on Dewford Island, we can skip straight to Ash's fight with Sonic.
Are you here to challenge me, little man?
Which starts off with Ash's Poochyena versus Sonic's Machop. Even though this is Poochyena's first gym battle, it puts up a decent fight. It ultimately gets taken out by Machop's Cross Chop. Ash then sends in his trusty Charizard, who puts Machop down with a single flamethrower. The next Pokemon is Makuhita, who gets hurt pretty bad before evolving into Hariyama. While evolving does give Hariyama much more of a fighting chance, it's ultimately taken down by Charizard when using Fire Fang. And because Ash earned his second badge on his first go around, this means that there's really no reason to stay in Dewford Island. So this means Ash skips out on having Corphish, Brock doesn't catch Mudkip, and May's Wurmple never double evolves. So with the Knuckle Badge in hand, they all head out to Slateport City. At Slateport, May registers for her first contest, and they meet Drew shortly after that. Because Wurmple never evolved, I don't think that May's gonna be using Wurmple this time around, so she decides to use Seviper instead. And because that we know in the main timeline Jessie used it in a contest, Seviper seems to at least tolerate the idea of being in a Pokemon contest. While Seviper does get May past the appeal stage, they ultimately do lose to Drew. The following day, Ash and Max run into Team Magma at a museum, where Ash is able to hold off the grunts long enough for Officer Jenny to show up and scare him away. The group then decide to hit the road to Mawile City. However, after they leave Slateport, we move into the events of the 6th movie. The majority of this movie can play out like normal. However, because we have Charizard here, Ash decides to take her to distract Butler, while Max takes Flygon to save Jirachi. This means we don't get that Groudon abomination at the end of the movie, and Butler never realizes how much Diane means to him. So the two don't stay a thing by the end of the movie, and since Butler's dream of resurrecting Groudon was ruined, he decides to keep looking for another way to resurrect it, while Diane decides to stay in Florina to protect Jirachi. This may or may not be important way down the line, but anyways, let's keep going. At the end of the movie, May's Wurmple finally evolves into a Silcoon. After the events of the movie, nothing notable happens, so we can go straight to Ash's gym battle against Watson. The first fight is Ash's Poochyena versus Watson's Magnemite, and even though Magnemite manages to paralyze Poochyena, its ability Quick Feet activates, allowing it to outspeed Magnemite and land quite a few more blows. Eventually, Poochyena is able to take down Magnemite, and Watson brings out his Voltorb. Ash decides to give Poochyena a rest and sends out Trico. He then goes on to defeat Voltorb and almost defeat Magneton. Once Trico is defeated, Poochyena comes out, only for it to double KO itself with Magneton. And because Ash still had Charizard as his third Pokemon and Watson had none, he earns the Dynamo badge. Since Ash didn't one-shot all of his Pokemon, Watson never feels depressed and never meets Electric. With no other reason to stay, the group leaves Mawile City, and without Team Rocket around, the group never goes to Mirage Kingdom, meaning Togepi hasn't evolved yet and isn't left there to take care of all the other Togepis. Anyways, during the fight with the Winstraight family, Brock wants to send out his Cacnea, but Wynaut lets itself out. Thanks to Wynaut using Counter and Mirror Coat, Brock wins this match. As for May's round, she decides to use Silcoon, who evolves into a Beautifly, but she ultimately loses that fight. Max borrows Ash's Poochyena to fight Vivi's Marill and wins. As for Ash, she obviously uses Charizard to battle Vicky's Camerupt, and this fight actually ends in a tie. Not long after this, May catches herself a Skitty, and fun fact, Cacnea cannot swim.
Looks like your Cacnea can't swim.
May's second contest is a bit different as Beautifly isn't as strong at this point, meaning she loses in the finals. Ash does offer to train with her if she wants to get stronger, and since Torchic wants another battle with Charizard, she accepts Ash's offer. The gang then run into Team Aqua and Magma again at Mount Chimney. Ash gives Charizard and Trico the Meteorite to take far away while he and Professor Cosmo destroy Team Magma's machine. Team Aqua does chase after the Meteorite, but after Charizard flies into a cave, they lose track of them. This means both teams don't get what they want, so they leave and Professor Cosmo gets his Meteorite. After this, we skip straight forward to Ash's battle with Flannery. Ash's Poochyena takes on Mag, and even though Mag has an edge in ranged attacks, Poochyena is far faster and more agile, allowing it to get in close and landing moves like Tackle and Bite. Thanks to Mag not having evolved in this timeline, Poochyena just barely manages to defeat it. When Flannery switches out to Meg, Ash decides to give Poochyena a bit of rest and sends out Trico. While it does do better than its canon counterpart, Trico still gets defeated by the end of it. Ash then brings out Poochyena again to finish off Meg, however it's too weak to continue battling, meaning Ash has to send in Charizard to fight Flannery's Torkoal. This becomes a battle of fire, and because Torkoal overuses Overheat, Charizard is able to eventually overpower it whenever it uses Overheat. And with that, Ash earns his 4th badge, and the following day they decide to head back to Petalburg City. In this timeline, they don't encounter the Spindas, so they arrive at the Valley of Steel very early, meaning Ash doesn't get his Torkoal. However, two things do happen while they're here. Ash and Charizard both battle and catch a Skarmory, which makes it his 4th Pokemon in the region, and it seems to really like Ash, but hate everybody else for some reason. As they continue through the valley, the group runs into an angry Steelix. So Ash, May, and Brock send out their fire types to fight it off. It's during this battle that Brock's Charmander finally evolves into a Charmeleon, and because Brock has been a good trainer to it, Charmeleon never really becomes disobedient to Brock, it just gets a little moody from time to time, I guess. Together, Charizard, Charmeleon, and Torchic take down the Steelix, but none of them really want to catch it, so they just take that opportunity to leave the valley. Leaving the Valley of Steel behind, they arrive at Mawile City where Ash and May battle Watt and Watson. It's actually during this battle that May's Torchic evolves into Combusken, and with that evolution, not only does May win her round, but Ash wins his. After their matches, they continue their journey to Petalburg City. However, during a sparring match, May Skitty ends up inhaling a bit too much of Charizard's smokescreen, and they realize that Skitty has lost its voice, so they go to get some help. They end up at Abby's clinic where she helps Skitty get her voice back, and shortly after this, May has a little sparring match with Abby and her Delcatty. It's after May's defeat that Skitty is taught how to use Blizzard. The next notable thing is that May and her Skitty end up winning the Verdant Turf ribbon, making it her first ribbon. During the battle with Guy's Exploud, both Trico and Loudred evolve at the same time. Unlike in the original, Grovyle beats Exploud before it can get away. This means Guy has to deal with a disobedient Exploud. But that's none of our business, just like how Norman's wife almost leaves him, and we can go into Ash's gym battle with Norman. Their first Pokemon are Slackoff versus Poochyena. Even though Slackoff is a lot slower than Poochyena, it forces Ash and Poochyena to fight at Norman's pace. After getting hit with a Shadow Ball and Blizzard, Ash realizes that having Poochyena out isn't really the way to go, so he decides to swap out to Skarmory, who begins by using Spikes and countering Blizzard with Air Cutter. After 2 Steel Wings, Slackoff is defeated, forcing Norman to send out Vigoroth. Both Pokemon are fast and strong in their own rights, but Vigoroth is eventually able to take out Skarmory because it knows Flamethrower. Ash then sends out Poochyena, who just barely manages to defeat Vigoroth with a couple of tackles and bites. However, when Slacking comes out, Poochyena is far outclassed in terms of power. For his final Pokemon, Ash sends out Grovyle, and this sorta plays the same, just like 30% faster. Once Slacking is defeated, Ash earns the Balance Badge, his 5th badge so far. After this, they decide that the next gym they're gonna take on is in Fortree City. On their way, Ash and May get into an argument before running into a couple who wants to tag team battle them, which they lose because Ash and May couldn't really get along with each other at that moment. After this, May catches herself a Bulbasaur, and her Bulbasaur briefly meets Ash's Ivysaur. Sometime after this, Brock's Lotad evolves into a Lumberry and they arrive to Rubello Town, where May enters the contest. I'm actually gonna say that May wins this contest because unlike in the original show, she didn't have that winning streak that she really cared about, so she doesn't get mad at everyone, plus Drew would really underestimate her since she really only has 1 ribbon. After helping a Spoink find its pearl, Ash and May enter the Cross Gate Poke-Ringer. Ash enters with Skarmory and May enters with Beautifly. Without James here, May makes it to the one-on-one round, however she loses to Shane's Swablu. Ash and Shane then face off with each other in the final, and much like in the original, Ash proves himself to be the best and wins. The events at the Weather Institute remain the same for the most part. The only thing that is new is that Poochyena learns Dark Pulse. Moving on, we can go to when they arrive at Fortree City. And since Winona is helping out in the carnival, the gang decide to let out all their Pokemon so they can enjoy the carnival as well. At the end of the carnival, Ash and Winona have a Skarmory race. Both of them hop onto their Skarmorys and race. While Ash's Skarmory would usually be faster, it's not used to having Ash on its back, so it slows Skarmory down a lot. Thus, Winona wins the race. The following day after the carnival, we finally get a gym battle between them, and they begin with Altaria and Grovyle. While Altaria has the type advantage, Grovyle is much faster. Grovyle is eventually able to beat it when it gets on top of Altaria and lands a Leaf Blade, which defeats it. Ash decides to recall Grovyle, and before he can choose another Pokemon, his Skarmory lets itself out of the ball. Ash, knowing that Skarmory wants revenge for losing the race, he lets Skarmory battle. Ash's Skarmory is able to stay in the battle for a really long time as it's revealed that it knows Roost. However, this ultimately ends with both of them knocking each other out when they collide with Steel Wing. Winona sends in her last Pokemon, a shiny Swellow, while Ash sends in his Charizard. This doesn't end well for the starter Pokemon as Swellow is just too fast for Charizard to handle. She does land a few Fire Fangs and Flamethrowers, but it's not often enough for Swellow to go down. This unfortunately means that Charizard gets taken out, and Grovyle is sent in to take care of the Swellow. It's obviously a very hard battle for Grovyle, but it manages to pull through. This earns Ash his 6th badge, and after that, the gang gets going to the next town. The gang then help a trainer and his Camerupt out of the river, and they go watch one of the movies he brought for a small village. And speaking of movies, we move on to the events of the Deoxys movie. Here, Poochyena can pretty much take up the role of Pikachu, and besides the green Deoxys taking a bit longer to regenerate, nothing really changes. The gang then makes a pit stop to the Slakoth Garden, where Ash catches himself a second Snorlax. He doesn't keep it for long, as he knows how much trouble they are, so he sends it back to Professor Oak. After this, they arrive at Lilycove, where they learn how to make Pokeblocks. And May enters a contest there that she ends up winning and getting her 3rd ribbon. On their way to Mossdeep City, they re-encounter the Spoink, who loses its pearl again. After helping Spoink get its pearl again, Ash decides to add it to his team. After all, if it stays in its Pokeball, it won't lose the pearl for a 3rd time. Unfortunately, without Team Rocket around, we miss out on all the Kyogre and Groudon stuff. Thankfully, Lance can handle this on his own for the most part, so we don't have to worry about that. This means when the group arrives at Mossdeep City, Ash has his gym battle with Ty and Lisa, making it Ash's first double battle in a gym. While Ty and Lisa use Solrock and Lunatone, Ash decides to send in Poochyena and Skarmory, which proves to be a bad idea as Skarmory doesn't want to battle alongside Poochyena. Because of this, Ash's Pokemon take more damage than they should. As they get beaten down, Skarmory reluctantly decides to battle alongside Poochyena, as it wants Ash to win the gym battle. Thankfully, Team Rocket isn't here to help sync up the twins, so during one of their arguments, Poochyena hops onto Skarmory's back. Ash then orders Poochyena to use Dark Pulse on Skarmory's Steel Wing, which turns Skarmory's Steel Wing from white to black. And with blazing speed, Ty and Lisa don't have enough time to give out orders, so their Pokemon get hit by that weird combo move. Because of the Dark Pulse that's surrounding the Steel Wing, it causes the other Pokemon to flinch, and Ash's Pokemon get a couple more tries at attacking them. Ultimately, Poochyena finishes off Lunatone with a Dark Pulse, and Skarmory beats Solrock with that Dark Wing move, or whatever you want to call it. I know it sounds really weird, but it's not as weird as that Thunder Armor Ash used in the rematch against the twins. Regardless, this earns Ash his 7th badge, and after this, Ash battles Drake of the Elite Four. While Ash and his team do put up a better fight in the match, he is still no match for any of the Elite Four members. May then enters the Pariga contest and wins her 4th ribbon. Brock's Lombre never evolves into Ludicolo because Torkoal isn't here to blast Lombre into Samantha's Mawile. On their way to Sarosi Town, they enter a desert where the group run into a newly evolved Vibrava. Ash decides to battle one of them with Grovyle, and it doesn't take long for Grovyle to defeat it with a Leaf Blade. So Ash throws a Pokeball at it, and after it shakes, the catch is confirmed. Following this, we get the Snorunt episode, and yes, he still catches it, but it gets sent back to Professor Oak. Also, side note, Brock's Wynaut and the Snorunt become really good friends, as they both like taking things that aren't theirs. After the Worlds episode, the group arrives at Sootopolis City, where Ash challenges Juan to a gym battle. Ash's first set of Pokemon are Spoink and Skarmory, while Juan sends out Celio and Seaking. Thanks to Spoink's jumping ability, it's able to jump from platform to platform with really no issue, and Skarmory can just fly around the arena avoiding attacks. When Celio uses its 5th Ice Ball, Spoink uses Psychic to send it right back at Seaking, knocking it out. Unfortunately, Skarmory can't really handle any more of Celio's ice attacks, so it gets knocked out, and Poochyena comes in to replace Skarmory. Both Spoink and Poochyena have trouble taking out Celio, but after a Dark Pulse and Psybeam combo, Celio is history. So for the next match, they switch into one-on-one battles. Ash calls out Spoink while Juan sends out Love Disc. Spoink is able to dodge Luvdisc's Sweet Kiss and uses Psychic to toss the fish out of water. This slows Luvdisc down enough for Spoink to land a Confuse Ray, and the confused Luvdisc takes itself out. Juan then sends out his Whiscash next, and Spoink tries to do the same thing here, only for it to be taken out by a Hyper Beam. For his next Pokemon, Ash sends out Poochyena, who struggles a lot. After being hit with a Surf and Hyper Beam, Poochyena struggles to get up, but thanks to Ash begging it to get up, Poochyena begins to evolve into a Mightyena. This evolution not only makes it stronger, but it learns Snarl in the process. With this, Mightyena is able to hold out long enough to defeat the Whiscash. Juan's final Pokemon is Milotic, who gets hit with 2 Snarls before defeating Mightyena. Ash's second to last Pokemon is Grovyle, who he hoped would do quite a bit of damage or even take down Milotic, but Grovyle doesn't do that good here. Yes, it does land a few Leaf Blades and Bullet Seeds, but by the end of it, Milotic takes out Grovyle with a Hydro Pump and Twister. Ash's final Pokemon is his Charizard, and thanks to the Snarls from earlier, Hydro Pump isn't as effective as it normally would be. Don't get me wrong, Charizard still struggles a lot, even when they decide to get rid of all the water to slow Milotic down. It also doesn't help that Milotic can use Recover. Regardless, the battle comes to a close when Milotic uses Iron Tail and Charizard goes for a Metal Claw. Both Pokemon fall to the floor and Charizard's the only one who is able to stand up. After Ash is declared the winner, Charizard can no longer stand up and faints. Ash notices that the flame on Charizard's tail is dangerously close to going out. So he recalls Charizard and rushes out of the gym without even getting his badge. He rushes over to the nearest Pokemon Center. While Charizard is being treated by Nurse Joy, his friends and Juan finally catch up to him. Juan tells Ash that he really shouldn't send out fire types against water types unless he has some way to counter the water types. After he hands Ash the badge, it gets Ash thinking about teaching Charizard something that'd be super effective against water types. Using the Pokédex, he finds out that one of the moves Charizard can learn is Solar Beam. So Ash temporarily brings back Ivysaur onto his team to help Charizard learn the move. Once Charizard gets the basics of the moves down, Ash sends Ivysaur back to Professor Oak. Although Charizard is having quite a bit of trouble pulling off the move, as it is quite a bit unnatural for her to learn. I mean, a fire type using a grass type move is a bit weird. So they're gonna have to keep practicing it until they can master Solar Beam. With his 8th badge in hand, he finds out that he's got 3 months until the league takes place. And that's where we're gonna be leaving it off for today. Overall, I do say that I really did enjoy the Hoenn part of Ash's journey. The only thing I really have a criticism of the arc is that Ash only catches like 5 Pokemon. Don't get me wrong, all the 5 Pokemon that Ash caught in the original timeline are great. I love Corphish, but I mean, come on. He could have caught a few more. I'm not saying that he should have caught every Pokemon in the region, because then he'd be basically Go, and I just don't like Go. But I think 5 is too low. Maybe he should have caught like 7 or 10. Regardless of all that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.